Welcome. This panel is part of the virtual All Kids Bike Health and Education Symposium. Thank you for making the time to be with us. I'm Dean Rotbart, host of Monday Morning Radio, and I have the pleasure of serving as moderator for this session, which is titled, What is the All Kids Bike Movement and How Can I Help? The concept of All Kids Bike began with a single question. What if every kid in America learn to bike by the time they enter first grade? Ryan McFarland, one of our panel members today, posed the question to begin a dialogue with colleagues, family, and friends who share his enthusiasm for riding on two wheels. Ryan knows that bicycling is much more than a simple recreational activity for children. It's a proven lifelong game changer. Biking boosts the self-confidence of children. It instills a love of the outdoors. It fosters friendships with other kid bikers, and to the delight of young children, it allows them to ride along with their older siblings and parents on family outings. Ryan's vision is of an entire pedal-savvy generation, beginning with today's preschoolers, who will grow into active, civic-minded adults who change the way our nation views such vital policy issues as infrastructure, sustainability, and public health. But Ryan is sufficiently grounded to know that to turn visions into reality requires an action plan and funding. Through the Strider Education Foundation, a 501c organization, Ryan and his fellow SEF board members set about moving the All Kids Bike concept off the drawing board and out into the real world. All Kids Bike, which is well underway, intends to provide an opportunity for every child in America to learn to ride a bike by the time he or she enters first grade. The success of the All Kids Bike movement will require the joint effort of parents, educators, community leaders, health officials, and generous donors throughout America. The program and the broad coalition it needs to succeed is the topic of this panel. With us today are four enthusiastic supporters of the All Kids Bike movement. We have Ryan McFarland, founder and chair of All Kids Bike; Wayne Lilly, senior director of development and outreach for Strider Education Foundation; Marilyn Stemp, author, editor of Iron Trader News and national ambassador; and Robert Pandya, former PR manager for Indian Motorcycles and also a national ambassador. You can find full bios on each of the panelists on our All Kids Bike website at allkidsbike.org. Let's begin with Ryan, who is the original visionary behind the All Kids Bike movement and a member of the board of the nonprofit Strider Education Foundation. Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Yes, happy to be here. Always happy to speak about All Kids Bike and the positive impact we can make in children's lives.
Well, it's good again to have you. This panel is going to be viewed for the remainder of 2019 and into 2020. So I'm not going to ask you to start by giving us an update on how many schools and students are currently participating in the All Kids Bike program, because I know that number is going to be changing constantly. What I do want to ask you is, how many schools and students do you expect to welcome in the next year?
You know, there are roughly 48,000 elementary schools in the United States. So this is really a huge endeavor. You know, my goal in the next 2 years really would be to get about 10% of those schools on board and running this program. And I think that becomes a tipping point where this really starts to spread exponentially. So, you know, this is a massive undertaking, but the results will be so powerful that it is worth embarking upon. But initially, we are pushing to get to that 10% of those 48,000 schools, and I really believe at that point it becomes very much a mainstream initiative and push.
Great. Wayne Lilly, our next panelist. Wayne oversees development and outreach for the Strider Education Foundation, which is the organization that is responsible for the All Kids Bike movement. Wayne, how you doing today?
Good, Dean. Thanks. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm a little bit hot. I'm in Austin, Texas, where for about the last week, it's barely broken beneath 100 degrees. But other than being hot, it's not great biking weather. But Wayne, what I'm interested in hearing from you today is what type of supporters All Kids Bike is already attracting, and what types of groups, businesses, foundations, or organizations you foresee joining the movement in the year ahead.
Sure, Dean. Happy to share a bit of that. So, you know, it's there's a wide range of sampling, a number of people who are hearing about the movement and realizing this is a good movement to join in, and it's a great investment of my time and resources. So, for example, there's certainly individuals, the grandmother and grandfather and mother and father, and folks who see it's worth investing in the lives of children through biking in my community, and they've been willing to certainly contribute to the cause. Some fun folks like bike shop owners who are realizing as well, wow, this is a great chance for me to work closely with my community and help kids in the community learn to ride bikes. So bike shops, motorcycle dealers, they're joining right in there because we're all certainly passionate to help kids learn to love two wheels. Even down to the businesses in the community like credit unions or banks who are taking a chance to not only to basically invest in their investors, realizing the healthy family and a healthy lifestyle is something they want to be part of as well. So the local businesses as well, and even down, Dean, to local governments. So we are seeing local governments and cities who are coming alongside the movement, and they'll financially invest in helmets or even routes, et cetera, and certainly the program. Because they appreciate that that's going to be a great investment for them. What do I foresee? I think there's some national brands that are continuing to, and businesses who are hearing and learning and are going to understand, and we're even in discussions with, that are going to come alongside the movement because they understand that mobility and confidence and health is something good to invest in their future customers and as well just their families. You know, there are foundations out there just like us who have parallel visions, and we're talking, and I do foresee more of our paths crossing, intersecting, and we'll invest together in this movement, and they'll invest into the kids through All Kids Bike as well. And then on top of that, more and more individuals. I mean, it comes down to an investment of less than $10, you know, per child can help a child learn to ride a bike. Pretty good ROI. So there are a number of folks who will take on certainly whole programs, and others that will come along a child at a time. So I see that in the future as well.
Terrific. One of the groups of people who we are recruiting, if you will, are our national ambassadors. These are men and women who support, are enthusiastic about the All Kids Bike program, and are using their existing networks, their experience in whatever frame of life, whether they're in business, whether they are recreational bikers, whatever it is, to be out there. We need basically a small army of national ambassadors. We have two of them with us on the panel today. Our third panelist is Marilyn Stemp. She is a distinguished author. She is the editor of Iron Trader News and a longtime journalist, and she is one of our national ambassadors. Marilyn, thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk about something that I know Robert and I in particular are passionate about in terms of its relationship to motorcycling.
Well, you're very familiar with the motorcycle community, which really have been early adopters of the All Kids Bike program, getting behind it, talking it up, being enthusiastic about it. For those people who are not necessarily well steeped in motorcycle culture, maybe you can explain a little bit what the natural symbiosis is between motorbikes, motorcycling, and kids on pedal bikes?
Oh, as I'm sure Robert will reiterate, it is indeed a very natural connection. You know, it's two wheels and two wheels. But, you know, when we talk to motorcycle people who have been in the industry like us and have lived our lives here and have wonderful experiences over the years, it's natural that we want other people to join us in this industry and have, you know, the same kind of enriching experience and great career opportunities that we've had. So, you know, when we talk to motorcycle people about strider bikes or encouraging people to ride bikes as children, that takes them right back to their own origin stories as motorcyclists. And, you know, over the years of having the opportunity and privilege to interview a lot of people as a motor journalist, that's something I find pivotal to everybody's story is when did you first learn to ride or when did you first become aware of motorcycling? It's very common for someone to tell me that a dad, an uncle, somebody gave them their first ride or had a motorcycle. But it's also equally common that they'll talk about their own bicycling as a kid and how that was literally and figuratively their first vehicle. You know, that bicycle provided autonomy, freedom, a way to break away from, you know, the family unit and have a little bit of experience that was unique to them and the opportunity that it gave them to just branch out as individuals, you know, as children. You know, and I hear funny stories about jumping over the trash cans for the neighborhood kids, like Evel Knievel style, and the kinds of things that ultimately led them to pursue two wheels with an engine. But, you know, that pivotal bicycling experience is a common thread through motorcycling people. And, you know, as I've become an ambassador for All Kids Bike, and I talk to especially custom builders and people in my industry, when I mention Strider to these folks, it's not new. I very, very often hear, oh, I bought a Strider from my daughter or my nephew or my grandchild. Motorcycle people are very much aware of the entry opportunity that Strider provides for people to come into motorcycling. So, you know, I find it's just easy and everyone's enthusiastic about it.
Thank you, Marilyn. Robert, I'm going to come to you in just 1 minute, but I'm going to skip out of turn if I can and go back to Ryan for a minute. Marilyn, you're actually the first person on the panel to even mention the word Strider, although I have mentioned Strider Education Foundation, but the All Kids Bike program depends upon very uniquely designed bicycles that are manufactured by Strider. So Robert, before I come to you, maybe Ryan, you could just explain for a minute what the equipment is and the education program that gets donated to schools. We should point out that schools don't have to lay any money out of their own pockets to participate in the All Kids Bike program. Ryan, would you mind just addressing that for a minute?
You bet. So the program, it's an 8-week curriculum, so 8 lessons, and it leads a child from basically the first introduction to the bike all the way through really proficiently riding on 2 wheels, pedaling on 2 wheels, never using training wheels. And this process is unique in that we have reversed what has traditionally been done. And traditionally, we have put children on bikes with training wheels or on tricycles, and we have focused on the pedaling of the bike and not on the balancing of the bike. Yet the balancing is the fundamental skill that they need to learn. And so the key to our program really is reversing the order in which you learn. And when you learn balancing first, then the pedaling comes very easily and naturally. But to make that transition easy and natural requires 2 different types of bike. And what we have designed at Strider is a bike that transitions. It starts as a balance bike with no drivetrain whatsoever. So kids have their feet on the ground and they are pushing the bike around and focusing on keeping the bike centered beneath them, learning their balance and bike handling skills first. And then that very same bike transitions into a pedal bike by the addition of a drivetrain. And the bike just simply makes the process easy for kids. And we're hitting kids at just the right age at kindergarten that they can easily move through this process. So in 8 lessons, they can go from not knowing anything about a bicycle to pedaling a bicycle around.
Awesome. Robert, you get double time because I skipped you in the direction of things, but you know, not only are you a national ambassador, and we're very grateful to have you serve in that role, but really you have been an enthusiastic communicator on behalf of the motorcycle industry for much of your career. You maybe most notably served as the PR manager for Indian motorcycles, which have a great cachet, not only among motorcycle enthusiasts, but among Americans, many of whom saw the film about Indian motorcycles. And I wanted to ask you if you can explain your enthusiasm for the All Kids Bike program. Again, it is a program primarily aimed at kindergartners, and your experience has not been aimed at kindergartners. And also maybe talk about the fact that it really is not a program just for the insular motorcycling or power sports community, that it is a broad-based program.
Yeah, I think that's really critical. And I think that the challenge that we have in this industry, frankly, is bringing more people in. And I'm not really just talking about just motorcycling. It's really affects bicycling as well. And if I were to just jump ahead 10 years, and we'll imagine that there's just under 50 million kids who are under 11 years old today. Okay, so if every one of those kids knew how to ride and balance on 2 wheels, strictly speaking from the motorcycle industry standpoint, we would see an uptick in motorcycle sales immediately, like in small dirt bike sales and that sort of thing. Within 5 years, those kids are going to start getting driver's licenses. So we start to see an uptick in, scooters, small motorcycles, motorcycle training, helmet sales, tire sales, insurance sales, blah, blah, blah. So to be blunt, it's insane to me that anybody in the power sports industry doesn't understand that and doesn't back this kind of an effort. And equally so to the bicycle industry, which, Ryan's got some depressingly amazing statistics in regards to the direction of the bicycle industry. So I've spent a quarter of a century in the motorcycle world, but in reality, it boils down to, it almost sounds like it's like a stereotype, but it really boils down to that freedom. And that freedom, that taste of freedom I first got was absolutely on 2 wheels and riding around the neighborhood and understanding, balance and exploring my world and that sort of thing. I do think that we can't pretend that today is like it was when I was 10. Okay, we can't just go back 40 years. There's not a big open field where I can ride my dirt bike across the street from the house. That really doesn't exist anymore. We have issues with, distracted drivers out there and all these other sorts of pressures in our world that have fundamentally changed from when we were kids. Okay, so it is a different environment for somebody to raise a child and to expose them to riding on 2 wheels. But I think once you get past that initial potential trepidation and you realize the confidence it gives in little kids, you realize that the sense of freedom isn't running away from mom and dad, but it's running towards an interesting life with other people and meeting other people in a compelling way. And as Ryan has pointed out, that if we get the smallest balance bikes, even pre-K, as young as 18 months, 2 years, that sort of thing. If we get the smallest kids exposed to riding and balancing on 2 wheels, they have not yet developed. They don't know the difference between boy and girl, or black and white, or rich and poor, or this area versus that area, or anything like that. They are in a pure human state. And to introduce riding and cycling at that age and what it can do for a kid for the rest of their lives is such a compelling argument that there isn't any other product on the planet that can fundamentally change not just our industries as we look at it as business, but in terms of the perspective of young people as they come to grow. And then just as a collateral to that, even if a kid doesn't end up cycling or motorcycling in the future, the fact that bicycling was part of their youth. I don't play basketball on a court, but I know what a basketball is. And I kind of wanted one for Christmas when I was a kid. And, you know, I have no skill set in that whatsoever, but I'm aware of basketball. I'm aware of the community that it can bring together. And I'm aware how, you know, that kind of thing introduced into a neighborhood can be something that brings it together. Bicycling absolutely can do that. And with the collateral benefit of those non-riding kids who are eventually going to become business leaders and politicians and consumers to understand that things like protected bicycling lanes, that training programs and that sort of thing is only inherently an uplifting benefit really for all of society.
Marilyn, one of the things, thank you, Robert. One of the things that I think is important to stress is that bicycling, whether it's with a motor or without a motor, is very much a bipartisan, non-political movement. It's not confined to a certain political party or a certain socioeconomic. You have been exposed to the motorcycle community for a long period of time. I assume I'm correct in saying that they come from all backgrounds, economic, racial, political, etc.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, it's the beauty of the motorcycle community that people do come from so many different backgrounds and so many different experiences, but they meet on the commonality of riding motorcycles. And I imagine, you know, that sort of thing exists in lots of industries, but we have such a broad-based reach in motorcycling. You have the owners of the company and the workers of that company. You have people of all races, nationalities, business experiences. So many more women, of course, are riding these days. And that's really the growth spurt in motorcycling right now is through women riding. And, you know, it would be my very fondest hope to be able to report to you in a few years that it's the women's motorcycle movement that are buying the Strider bikes for their little girls and their granddaughters to bring even more, you know, women and girls into motorcycling and physical activity. So yeah, sure, you're absolutely right, Dean. So many people in motorcycling are from so many different areas and expertises that it gives us a huge opportunity to reach out to those people and reach a lot of other demographics.
I always like to point out when there are initiatives to try and get more women riding, I always like to point out that 50% of kindergartners are women, and we have 100% participation rates.
Good point.
Ryan, I actually wanted to come to you, and then Wayne, I'll put you in the batter's box as being up next. But this is the virtual All Kids Bike Health and Education Symposium, and our other panels among the topics are going to be how learning to bike at an early age, i.e. in kindergarten, helps students academically, it helps their physical development. In many ways, it serves them lifelong. It goes well beyond just motorsports. I mean, we're going to have on other panels experts who know that students perform better in school when they get off the couch, when they get away from their computer screens and their game machines in order to do that. We know that muscle development, overall physical development, immunity to certain childhood illnesses are all increased. But I want you are the visionary behind this, and I want you to make it clear to anybody who's just learning about this for the first time that this is actually not some hidden agenda aimed at pushing the motorcycle industry or aimed at pushing the sales of Strider bikes. This is a nonprofit undertaking where, in fact, If anything, there's a lot of money going into this program to help make it possible from the Strider Education Foundation. If you would just address that for a minute.
Yeah, you bet. Yep. Certainly the products that we use are Strider products in this program, simply because they are the best products for this particular endeavor available on the market anywhere worldwide. Strider is the leader in teaching kids how to ride safely and early and easily. With that said, we use those products, but you know, the Strider company is the largest donor to the foundation. So the bulk of the support comes from Strider, and the products are moved into the foundation, you know, just over cost. So, you know, this is really a project of ours that we just simply want to see more kids get active. You know, the statistics are just alarming on the obesity rates, the childhood disease rates related to sedentary lifestyles. And so it is a larger push to try and get kids active for the sake of our nation. And really getting kids active, I believe bicycling has the best shot at getting kids active than any other activity, simply because bicycling taps into kind of that core human desire for mobility. You know, that's kind of what drives us from crawling to walking to running. And if we can slide a bike in there next, you know, it really just simply plays on that desire for more mobility and freedom. And that's you know, that's something that stays with a person for life. And, you know, bicycling just has a better chance at getting kids off the couch and establishing that healthy pattern for life than any other activity I see.
Thank you. Wayne, we are calling this a movement as opposed to a program or a campaign. And part of the definition or ingredients of a movement is broad-based support. We are trying to get the support of parents, of teachers, of school administrators, of businesses, of nonprofits, of politicians, of all those people. One of the things I note from the All Kids Bike website, and again, it's at allkidsbike.org, is that the movement has a goal of getting 1 million signatures that show that people are fans of the concept. What's the importance of getting 1 million people? You're not asking them for money. You're not asking 1 million people to donate, although that would certainly be nice. And you're not asking 1 million people to become national ambassadors. All you're asking them to do is to go to the website, again, allkidsbike.org, and say, I'm a fan of this program. Why is that important?
Hey, Dean, sure. So, you know, to answer the question, maybe it's important, one, because it gives all of us a chance to just voice we're in support of the movement, which then lets us share with those who might be able to fund and move the movement to say there is a movement. But maybe we step back one step first, and if I could just talk a little into even what the movement is. You know, we were talking about that it's, you know, this is a movement among really the entirety of our country. Everyone fits in this movement. Well, my background is education, actually. So I was a middle school teacher, and it's a funny spot to be because most people say, hey, you're not on the fence. That's a love or hate profession or moment. And I loved it. I loved middle school, and I loved those students. The reason I bring that up is I realized at that stage of life that a number of those children had experiences that were already had imprinted upon their life. And so going way back upstream is important in the development of a child. So this movement is going way upstream in the development of a child. And I like to call it the first ladder rung. So the movement has 3 pillars that I share a lot. And those are, and we've heard them among the panelists, mobility or / freedom, you know, and that's a pillar in this, that giving kids mobility is important. And the second one is confidence. And that's confidence for the classroom. That's confidence that will translate into maybe at their athletics or the pursuits that will then garner them more confidence that will lead into better academic participation and pursuits. And then the third is simply health. But that's what the movement's about: mobility, confidence, health. And so that's a movement I think we can all get behind, knowing that if that happens early, 6 years old, we sweep through, then we can help change the trajectory of a child when they go through their entire school career. So when they land in middle school, the experiences that might have been had at 6 that weren't so great suddenly have a moment that their trajectory was changed. So middle school, high school career is forever changed just from doing something like learning to ride a bike. And again, getting on that first ladder rung. That means they can go up the ladder rung with whomever can help them grow, but they have to get there. So that's what the movement's about. So learning to ride a bike is still one of those rites of passage, as we'll call it. One of those moments that's just critical in life that lets us know we can, and we'll keep going on and on. So those 1 million signatures, they help us as we go towards that. They help us tell each other, let's get behind this. And they also allow our team to demonstrate to those who are considering investing in it and making the bikes literally possible to be in the classroom, that this is about, and there's an entire organization, 1 million strong, of folks behind this. It is a movement. So that's what will make it a movement as we all jump on board.
While we've got you, talk a little bit, if you will. I know you have had communication with some foundation people in terms of why this might be a good place for them to show their support. Talk a little bit about, pretend for a minute that I control the purse strings at a foundation. Tell me why I should get involved.
Yeah, certainly. So, foundation to foundation, the one thing we all realize is we have lots of common goals and lots of vision, but they all take the tool or the resource of finances, funds, and money. So, foundation to foundation, as we find our similarities, certainly we want to make sure that we're able to pull together and drive our goals together. So I would just say, as foundations, we are having those conversations, and we're realizing, especially in the space of education, in child health, in that child health, even drilled down to screen time, foundations in those spaces that want to invest in something that certainly is leaving children with something that can be measurable, meaning we can measure the dollars actually generated a result, a child riding a bike. Those foundations are hearing and listening and realizing, wow, this is a great space to especially invest in the space that we're concerned in with education and childhood health.
I'm going to ask you one more question. I didn't actually realize, I do have your bio here, but I didn't actually realize you began as a middle school teacher. Yeah. If I hope we do have many teachers and administrators and parents watching this, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about if they don't have All Kids Bike in their school, in their program, they don't have the program in their school, how they might go about getting their school to embrace it. The school doesn't have to put out any money, but the money has to be raised someplace. So talk about that for a minute.
Certainly. So yeah, I did live in that space, and what I would share first, administration and teachers and otherwise, we certainly want you to have the program. I haven't talked to many that don't, but one thing we want to do is lift that burden off your shoulders and know that there is no way to want this to tax a school budget. We understand how tight that is. So I would first say just go to allkidsbike.org, look it over. There's you can certainly communicate with us through an application that you'll find online. But what we want to do, and we will do, is help you, and we will help also rally the community around raising those funds for the program. So certainly don't let that be a roadblock. Know that that's a hurdle we'll all jump together. But so I would tell those administrators, teachers, and the schools as a whole, jump on in with us, and we'll certainly work to raise those funds together. We have a number of avenues that we can help you do that through crowdfunding, and then we'll certainly speak on behalf, and do speak on behalf of the movement nationally. to raise those funds.
Marilyn, as I understand it, I may have undersold you in my introduction. One is you are a member of the Sturgis Motorcycle Hall of Fame, and I failed to mention that. But more importantly and more relevant to this particular panel, you actually did fund the All Kids Bike program in a school in South Dakota. Tell us a little bit about that. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Well, that's just a sign, I guess, of the enthusiasm that can be generated when you listen to people like Wayne and Ryan talk about, the goals of the program and the potential change they can create. Robert has worked, developing new ridership in motorcycling, and he can speak more to that connection and why it hits home so much with motorcycle riders to reach out. So, as I said, I spent my life working in the motorcycle industry, and to bring along more motorcyclists, starting with the age of 5 or so is just too good an opportunity to pass up. And Ryan kind of indicated that South Dakota was going to be the poster child state for All Kids Bike. And we have a lot of little towns and little schools here that don't get love and don't get attention. But especially around the Sturgis area, these little towns, they are aware of motorcycling. When that motorcycle rally happens every August, you can't miss it. So children in Belle Fourche, which is the little town that we sponsored their schools, those children see motorcyclists. And so to get them on 2 wheels at the age of 5, I think we're looking toward getting them on motorcycles eventually. They're already aware of it.
Wayne, back to you for 1 minute, and then Robert, then you're in the on-deck circle, Robert, just so you're ready. Wayne, if somebody would like to sponsor a school, or they'd like to sponsor All Kids Bike, can they pick the school they want to sponsor? And does it have to be a public school? Are all schools eligible?
Yes, certainly, Dean. Thanks. So if anyone wants to fund the entirety of the school, they certainly can pick that school. So the program costs $4,000. And so that allows the bikes and the curriculum and the training to be accessed by the school, and it becomes the property of the school, and they can use that. And we project that'll actually teach an entire generation of students, 5 to 6 years of students on those bikes. So that's why the investment even comes down to $10 or less per child. So it's a great investment. So if somebody wants to certainly make that possible for any school in the country, we say, please, let's do that. We'll do it together. And the target right now is public schools. So we'll work directly with public schools to implement this program. So big goal.
I assume that if a private school wants to raise the money from its community in some form or another, that they can participate in All Kids Bike.
Certainly, we can help get them set up with a biking program for sure. That's right.
Robert, you really are a veteran expert at communications. And one of the things we want to do is we want to communicate with more potential ambassadors. You're a national ambassador. What can you tell other potential national ambassadors as to what the value to them might be? Certainly, it's doing a good deed. It's helping kids who will really benefit. But it doesn't take, nobody requires a national ambassador to make a donation. There's only a minimal amount of time, but some benefit must accrue to them besides just feeling good by being a national ambassador. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly. I don't know about getting the trophy for communications. I got a couple ex-girlfriends who might want to take that one back.
Professional communications.
Oh, right. Okay, I got it. Professional. Yeah. Anyway, really the thing about All Kids Bike is that as a cyclist or a motorcyclist, or even somebody who's just into mental health and physical fitness for kids, we have that sort of gut feeling that this is good. Duh. That getting kids out and moving and getting them off of screens is a good thing. So that there's really no debate there. What being an ambassador for All Kids Bikes bring is literally, it's a turnkey organization. So as an ambassador, I'll give you a very specific example. A friend of mine is named Steve Klein. He's a custom home builder. in Texas. He has built many, many, many homes in Victoria, Texas, which happen to surround a particular school. And he said, since I built all these houses that have all these families and all these kids, and he himself is a motorcyclist, and he has grandchildren and he's bought them Striders, he understands what this program can bring. And so he sponsored, as an individual, $4,000. And I think one thing that's important is that's $4,000 not for a year. That $4,000 is actually good for like 5 years of technical support and that sort of thing. So once you divide that number, that $4,000 against the 5 years, against the impact it can have in a community, that it literally is a drop in the bucket. I mean, on the custom motorcycle scene, I know guys who spent over $4,000 just for a set of rims on their motorcycle. And if, just as a social experiment, most families can connect with, 3 or 4 or 5 other families to each put in $500. And as a cul-de-sac could potentially sponsor their local school for the benefit of the entire community. So what All Kids Bike gives me as an ambassador is I'm enthusiastic about cycling and about motorcycling and about health and that sort of thing, but it's literally just a turnkey opportunity to say, like, here's the program. It's as easy as possible to implement. Why wouldn't you do this? And that's really the power of All Kids Bike, is the accessibility and how well the organization has put together the talking points with administrators and parents and PTAs and that kind of thing, to say, like, here's the thing that we do, as an All Kids Bike package, and that as Strider, a brand, as it grows internationally, that inherent benefit of physicality, of movement, of community, which is something I'm huge on, is just so obvious that being a Strider ambassador, I mean, I've worked pretty hard in my life and I'm trying to get more lazy about it, right? And All Kids Bike gives me a chance to, like, be super enthusiastic about riding. And then once I've got somebody who says yes, literally, like, here's the email, Steve Klein gets in touch with them, boom, we've got a school furnished. It's just that simple.
I think the sheer simplicity of what we have set up is kind of the game changer. Even as we work with other organizations and foundations, sometimes their path from having money to actually doing something with it that shows a result is a long and gray path for them, and even for many donors. And what we really offer is, it is a very quick path, and it shows very strong results in a very short amount of time. So, when we receive a donation to fund a school, those bikes ship to that school, and those teachers get trained in very short order. And by the end of the semester, every one of those kids is riding. It really delivers a big impact in a very short amount of time. And so that's very fun part about moving this forward, is how quickly you see real concrete results.
I would reiterate, Robert's comments about the turnkey aspect, and the ease in being an ambassador was something that's so easy to encourage people to participate in, but also want to compliment Strider on the implementation end, because the curriculum aspect of that is just stellar. It's easy for the teachers and the administrators of the school to engage and implement the program. The curriculum is so thorough and the plan is so well made.
Ryan, I think you started the All Kids Bike movement. I think I'm going to end this panel coming back to you. There are other panels as part of the All Kids Bike Health and Education Symposium that talk about the benefits to the individual students. Again, we talked about physical benefits, talked about psychological, social benefits. But in fact, if we start now, which we have, teaching young children before they get to first grade to bike, and then they go to first grade, and with the same bikes, we can teach the next class of students to bike, and then they move on, and now we have second graders and first graders. Well, first of all, pretty soon you've got a whole school that can bike, and then in time you have middle schoolers and high schoolers. I just thought maybe you could end by talking a little bit about what you envision as the ripple impact, not just for individuals, but for whole communities and really for the nation.
Right. Yep. Well, what we're talking about really is the foundational level of creating a healthier culture for our kids to grow up in. And when I look at all of the different advocacy efforts, and whether it's safe routes to school or trips for kids or any of these programs that try and get kids outside and active, or even changing infrastructure in communities, whatever it might be, they all need support. And it comes back to those fundamental laws of supply and demand. And what I see is that when we create riders in kindergarten and those numbers continue to amass, then all of the other programs that follow then start to flourish as well. So you've got lots of kids wanting to ride to school, which means lots of parents calling the mayor and saying, hey, we need a safe route to school. And you've got the benefit of less traffic congestion at the school, because you got more kids just simply riding their bikes to school instead of being driven in an SUV that's 5 blocks or 7 blocks from their house. And it just keeps compounding. More and more good keeps showing up, and you've got kids that are more aware of their surroundings. You've got kids that eventually become safer and better drivers when they get a driver's license. The benefits just keep stacking on top of what is a very solid foundation. But it is that it's laying that solid foundation early on and as wide as possible, not just a niche, but all kids on bikes is what builds that foundation that lets everything else stand solid upon.
Terrific. I think on that note, we will wrap up this panel. This has been the What is the All Kids Bike Movement and How Can I Help session as part of the All Kids Bike Health and Education virtual symposium. For more information, any more information, go to allkidsbike.org. And if nothing else, we really encourage you to join the movement by adding your signature. That's all it takes. No money, nothing else, just to add your signature to say, I support the All Kids Bike movement. And of course, if you can do more, we'd love to have it. I think the best contact person on this panel is Wayne, to reach out to Wayne. If you have something that you want to help, if you have a school that you want to see supported, Wayne's the person to go to. So I want to thank our panelists today, Ryan, Robert, Marilyn, Wayne. Thank you so much. That does wrap it up for this panel. I'm Dean Rotbart. Thanks for watching.